Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to Unexplored Skyrim. Today we're going to be checking out Broken Fang Cave, along with some of the surrounding area, including a giant mudcrab carcass, and also Gjukar's monument. So, let's waste no more time, and let's jump into it. And here's the location of Broken Fang Cave on the world map. It's kind of in between Rorikstead and Whiterun, just a bit to the south of both. Now, if you've played Skyrim, I'm sure you're aware that this area of the map is kind of flat. So as you're walking out here, you'll notice that there's these kind of two jetting up rocks or hills. I mean, they're not really mountains, but like hills. And if you walk in between the two giant rocks, you're going to find a lot of blood and a cave. There's some animal carcasses outside. Also some butterflies. So pretty, so nice. And then we just have absolute terror. But as we go inside of the cave, we can find some old Nordic ruins, ancient Nordic ruins, really, and we can find a vampire in here. So take out the vampire, like me and Eric, and it's pretty easy. There's only one of them in this first room. After that, you can kind of walk around. We can see these kind of Draugr tombs, but they're all empty. Obviously, they were killed by the vampires. And there's also a ton of wine on the ground, some kind of crazy party going on in here. Then, of course, we want to loot that vampire. Now, besides that, though, there's nothing else in this room besides this locked chest, so make sure you grab that bad boy and see what random loot you get. After that, one of the tombs or coffins opens up into the next chamber of the cave, so we want to go down here, follow it. Now, I wanted to be more sneaky, but I wasn't, and the master vampire saw me, which made this fight a little bit more tricky than it needed to be, but honestly it was pretty easy just because Eric the Slayer is an absolute boss. And then we put the final arrow through his chest. And in this final room of the cave, we can find some cages, which they had probably locked their victims in. There's also an alchemy lab with some potions, and also a book, which will increase your lockpicking, not your alchemy, don't know why. Also in the middle table, there's a human heart on a plate with blood. That's kind of vampire-ish, I guess, and they are vampires, so yeah, that makes sense. There's also a giant chest with some random loot inside, so make sure you take that, and some more potions and stuff like that. And over here, we can find a bookcase, but really, it's the enchanting table we want to look at. There is a black soul gem, an illusion skill book, and also a random enchanted weapon on top of the enchanter. But for me, the enchanted weapon was not very good, unfortunately. But yeah, that's pretty much it for Broken Fang Cave. It's just a small little cave. There's some radiant quest connected to this area, and it's always just filled with vampires. So yeah, it's a little vampire home. But we want to continue exploring the surrounding area, because if this was just it for the video, well, that would be kind of lame and kind of short. So let's head on out of the cave and head to the west. And as we make our way over here, we can find the giant carcass of a mudcrab surrounded by several, well, mudcrabs, who would have guessed. Now, this giant mudcrab is probably the spirit or the guardian mudcrab spirit in the quest Kind's Sacred Trials. I already made a video about that quest, which is located at Froki's Shack, so if you want to know more, check out my Froki's Shack video. And then over here in this little cave, we can find a dead adventurer with a note that reads, "Bounty, Juvenile Mudcrab. After hanging up my sword and bow to live a quieter life, I decided to study the lives and habitats of mudcrabs here at the Riften Fishery. It is in my hope that one day we might breed mudcrabs much like we do fish. If only everyone else at the fishery shared my interest. I am in search of a juvenile mudcrab so that I may study its growth. These young mudcrabs rarely leave the water, so I now need an intrepid fisherman to catch one. They can be caught in almost all lakes and streams." So as we can see here, this poor adventurer was killed by these mudcrabs when he was trying to get a juvenile mudcrab. So I guess the lesson here is don't mess with mudcrabs. Now after that, we can head over to Gjukar's monument, but not before finding this magical mudcrab. I shot him with an arrow and his body just went freaking flying, really wild. I guess his spirit just had trouble leaving his body. Should have sent him to the Riften Fishery. But anyways, over here near the giant mudcrab carcass, we can find Gjukar's monument. Now, this monument in-game is connected to the quest, the Book of Love. However, the Book of Love starts in Riften, so I'm going to save that quest for Riften. But for now, I just thought I'd go ahead and talk about some of the lore about the monument. Now, real quick, there is some conflict about the proper pronunciation, because in the quest, the Book of Love, we hear two different pronunciations. Ruki pronounces it Gjukar, and Fenrig pronounces it Gjukar. And the pronunciation Gjukar is most likely accurate since that would follow Nordic pronunciation. However, Fenrig would be the one who fought with Gjukar or Gjukar, so it's odd that he pronounces it Gjukar, so perhaps it is pronounced Gjukar, but I mean, it doesn't really matter, I guess. Either way, Gjukar's monument is a monument to an ancient battle that took place here in ancient times. Gjukar was the commander of the platoon that set up a camp nearby, but he was killed here along with the rest of his men. Not much else is known about what is happening here or what happened here, besides, he died, unfortunately, for him. But I just think it's a really kind of cool monument. It just sits out here in the middle of nowhere, and it's kind of haunting in my opinion. Alright everyone, thank you so much for watching this episode of Unexplored Skyrim. I hope you learned something today, and I hope you had fun. As always guys, if you have any recommendations for a future video or future location, please post them in the comments section below. And as always, until next time.